But Osgood Perkins wasn't obsessed with who did it. He wasn't trying to play armchair detective to solve the case. What stuck with him was one detail, something small but bone-chilling. There's one thing everyone seems to remember the most about JonBenét Ramsey. She was a 6-year-old beauty pageant queen. Her mother, Patsy, had been in pageants herself, and she'd passed that world down to her daughter. Patsy would paint full glam makeup on JonBenét's face, dress her in outfits that seemed better suited for a grown woman, and send her out to perform routines. Patsy was so proud of JonBenét. And for Christmas of 1996, Patsy wanted to give her daughter something special, so she ordered a custom doll from a company called My Twin. Apparently, their dolls were all the rage. Basically, if you send a company a photo of your child, they would make a life-size doll that looked exactly like them. So Patsy went through the whole thing, and a few weeks before Christmas, the doll arrived at the Ramseys' house. Patsy put it away in the basement on a high shelf in the laundry room, somewhere JonBenét wouldn't find it and spoil her surprise. Then, on Christmas Eve, when unwrapping presents, Patsy went to the basement to get the doll. She took the box down, set it on the washing machine, and lifted the lid. Inside, the doll lay perfectly still, eyes closed, face painted, hair styled, exactly like a tiny person lying in a coffin. Just for a second, Patsy's stomach dropped. She blinked and shook her head, forcing herself to breathe. It wasn't real. It was just a doll. JonBenét was upstairs, alive and well. But within 24 hours, that image would become real. JonBenét would be dead, and her body would be found mere feet away from where the doll had been stored. When Osgood Perkins heard that detail about the doll, it stopped him cold. It was one of the creepiest, most haunting things he'd ever read. He kept turning it over and over in his head. The idea that a replica of a little girl had almost predicted her fate, foreshadowed it. It made him think of voodoo dolls. You know, the kind where if you hurt the doll, you hurt the person that it represents? Although, quick side note, that's not really historically accurate. Contrary to popular belief, voodoo dolls generally aren't used for harmful purposes. Throughout history, going back to ancient Mesopotamia, it's way more common for people to use them for healing, protection, or the pursuit of positive goals. Unfortunately, popular culture has cemented a very Hollywood version of the voodoo dolls in our minds. And that was the case for Osgood Perkins, who heard about the doll and thought that maybe, in a twisted way, Patsy Ramsey had unwittingly brought that harm upon her daughter. Not on purpose, of course, but she had created an image of her child, and then, days later, that image became reality. Osgood tucked that idea away, not knowing yet how he'd use it. He just knew it affected him. Years later, when he read a book called The Golden Bough, a study in comparative religion by James George Fraser, the image of JonBenét's doll came back to him. The Golden Bough is a 19th century book about ancient religions and myths. It's all about how humans have always tried to control fate through rituals, sacrifices, and magic. In one section, Fraser writes about something called sympathetic magic. It's the idea that if you create an object that represents someone, whatever you do to that object will somehow affect the person that it represents. You want to bless someone? You make a likeness of them and anoint it. You want to curse someone? You stab it. It's simple, but really, really creepy. That's basically what we thought voodoo dolls were. And for Osgood Perkins, the pieces for his next project were starting to fall into place. There wasn't just one single spark. It was more like a collision of ideas. His father's secrets, the JonBenét doll, the concept of sympathetic magic, it all swirled together in his mind, and he would later begin to shape what would eventually become LongLegs. That's so impressive and so awesome. But there was still one part of the story that he needed to revisit, the other half of his family's shadow. Because if his father had lived a hidden life, it had only been because his mother was willing to keep all of his secrets. But Barry's family had a history of secrets of their own, and maybe even a touch of the supernatural. Osgood Perkins had been just 18 years old when his father died. His mom had done what she thought was necessary, shielding her kids from Anthony's true identity and protecting them from questions they might not have been ready to face. But Osgood said that he and his brother had always known their parents were keeping secrets, and it just made everything feel more complicated and messed up. As he grew into an adult, Osgood didn't blame his mother for her choices. He wasn't angry or resentful. He knew that she truly believed she'd done the right thing. It was a different time in the 80s and 90s, and the stigma towards both gay people and people with AIDS was severe. Telling the truth would have meant outing his father, which not only would have affected Anthony, but would have probably changed the way people treated Osgood and his brother. But as Osgood got older, his mother's decisions stuck in his mind, and he started to question them. Had his mother done the right thing by keeping those secrets? Would he have wanted to know the truth sooner? Or was she right to protect her kids from something that they couldn't understand? The problem was, Osgood never really had the chance to unpack those questions, at least not with his mom, because 9 years after losing his dad, tragedy struck again. On September 11th, 2001, Barry boarded a flight home from Cape Cod. She was on American Airlines Flight 11, the first plane that crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Osgood was 27 years old, and just like that, both of his parents were gone. He was left with memories and questions, but no one to answer them.
If you're brave enough, subscribe now. Just search for @Crimehouse Studios on YouTube. And remember, reality is the real horror.